warrants used to get a court's permission to surveil his campaign aides.
Yes, everything is going to be declassified, and much more than what you just mentioned. It'll all be declassified.
In the same interview, the president took a swipe at former Vice President Joe Biden.
I think that, when you look at Joe, I've known Joe over the years. He's not the brightest light bulb in the group, I don't think.
In the video announcing his candidacy earlier Thursday, the former vice president had harsh words for the president.
I believe history will look back on 4 years of this president and all he embraces as an aberrant moment in time.
Biden said he cannot stand by and watch the nation's character be altered. Thursday night, he attended a fundraising event with high-profile donors in Philadelphia. A major highway through downtown Denver is closed and will likely stay that way through the morning rush hour after a horrible, fiery wreck leaves several people dead.
We are still working on identifying those people that were killed, and we're also still trying to account for everybody involved in the crash.
Lakewood, Colorado police spokesman Ty Countryman says the crash involved at least 3 semi-trucks and a dozen cars on I-70 just west of downtown Denver. Because of the fire triggered by that wreck, they can't yet say how many fatalities there are. Witnesses told Fox 31 in Denver a truck was driving erratically and at a high rate of speed just before the crash and ran into stopped traffic. The Colorado Department of Transportation is inspecting a bridge above the fire for possible structural damage. This is Fox News.
The sky's the limit with Bank Pacific's secure MyCloud banking. You can access your account 24/7 with your smartphone, your computer, your iPad, or any other tablet. You can pay bills, set up alerts, check your balances, wire transfer money. It's never been easier. Enroll online or come on in and see one of our friendly staff. Digital Life, Digital Solutions. Bank Pacific.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Viva Bank Pacific.
The University of Guam presents Tritons Out Loud. Celebrate a day of diversity on Friday, April 26th at the University of Guam Calvo Fieldhouse from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Come out and experience the opening parade, food trucks, fashion and entertainment, and more.
Let's have some fun.
This event is open and free to the public. Join the first ever Diversity Day where we celebrate unity, pride, sexuality, individuality, and diversity of the Triton and Island community. Tritons Out Loud.
A Coast Guard officer accused of plotting a terror attack has been ordered released.
The release comes amid what U.S. Magistrate Judge Paul Day calls grave concerns about Christopher Hassan that have been presented by prosecutors. He faces trial on gun and drug charges and is accused of compiling a hit list of high-profile Democrats, journalists, and others. Still, he's not been charged with a terror-related crime. Judge Day says once Hassan is released from custody, he prefers that Hassan be electronically monitored and under house arrest. A hearing will likely decide the specifics of that. Prosecutors are also likely to challenge it. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has wrapped up his visit to Russia's Far East following his summit meeting with Russia's President Vladimir Putin. North Korea says Kim and Putin held deep discussions to boost strategic communication and tactical collaboration over issues surrounding the Korean Peninsula. Put more simply, North Korea's nuclear weapons program and the sanctions against that country, neither side announcing any major agreements. The National Rifle Association opening its annual convention Friday in Indianapolis. President Trump will offer the keynote speech. Vice President Pence will speak to the group as well. Another state looking to return to firearms to carry out death sentences.
Firing squads would be an option for executing prisoners in South Carolina under legislation making the rounds in the state's capital. After prison officials informed lawmakers they don't have the drugs needed for lethal injections, a proposal to add firing squads was approved in the state Senate. Another bill would make the electric chair the primary execution method in the state. South Carolina has 29 prisoners on death row but hasn't performed an execution since 2011. Rich Dennison, Fox News.
In New York, I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Hey, it's
Mom. Somebody forgot to thaw the chicken, so meet us at Chili's for 2 for $25. Oh, and congratulate your sister for making the basketball team. She's thrilled. Love you. See you at Chili's.
Enjoy 2 full meal combos for $25. An appetizer, 2 mouth-watering entrees like our crispy chicken breast, smoked barbecue quarter leg, or smoked jalapeno cheddar sausage. Served with corn on the cob and french fries. 2 bold combos for $25. A full-on meal deal available nightly for a limited time. Together, we Chili's.
The GCC Votech Class of 79 is back. Join them on April 27th at the Onward Beach Hotel for a night of dinner, dancing, skits, and reminiscing. It's been 40 years since graduation, so take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime chance to relive the memories. There's also a memorial mass on Friday, the 26th, at the Santa Teresita Church. Be there at 5:30 for candle placement in honor of classmates who've gone before. Tickets for the reunion on the 27th are on sale for $40 a person. For details, find Connie Ketigwa St. Nicholas at 488-6108 or Kathy Diaz, 777-3243. Viva 79ers!
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's how we start the program every day. And some of you younger folks might not recognize the theme music that plays in the background as I do that respectful reading of the Second Amendment. That theme music in the background is called the theme from Peter Gunn, an old TV show starring a guy named Craig Stevens. And so I picked it not because I like the music so much. I really do. I really like a good, strong instrumental like that, as you might have noticed at the end of the program and at the end of our big halftime show. But I thought the title of that song was Irresistible, the theme from Peter Gunn. What a way to start the program with the Second Amendment. So today I've got a note here dealing with the NRA. So I'm what I would consider to be one who advocates the protection of the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, along with the other parts of the Bill of Rights. And one of my allies in advocating that Second Amendment is the National Rifle Association, also known as the NRA. And the left loves to beat up on the NRA. Right after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting, this young man named David Hogg, H-O-G-G, became an instant media celebrity. And he presented himself as very anti-gun, anti-NRA. And the remarkable thing about David Hogg was you could hardly see members of the lips move when David Hogg would talk. So in order to put my money where my literal and figurative mouth was, I joined the NRA right about that time. So I am now a card-carrying member of the NRA. And I'm on the lookout for news that deals with the NRA. Here's a pretty good example. NRA sues Los Angeles over disclosure requirements. When the city of Los Angeles passed requirements that contractors have to disclose all ties to the National Rifle Association, we all knew what it was really about. The city wasn't likely to grant contracts to anyone with those ties if there was any other choice. So in other words, if you want to enter into a contract with the city of L.A., to mow lawns or clean the sewers or fix the water pipes or whatever else it is that the city of L.A. hires contractors to do, you're going to have to disclose in your application all ties that you have with the National Rifle Association. I didn't say Communist Party or ISIS or some other organization. I said the NRA, which probably L.A., the city of L.A., probably counts as bad as the two groups that I mentioned. Regardless of what Los Angeles may claim, it's about both hurting the NRA by discouraging companies from working with them and also about hurting companies that do anyway. Unsurprisingly, the National Rifle Association has filed suit. The NRA filed suit Wednesday, challenging a newly implemented ordinance by the city of L.A. that seeks to limit ties between city contractors and the gun rights group. This is a quote. The lawsuit alleges that the ordinance, which took effect on April 1, violates constitutional protections for free speech and association. This is a point I've made before, that the Second Amendment oftentimes, the attacks on the Second Amendment oftentimes implicate the First. And this is another example. It violates the constitutional protections for free speech and association under the First Amendment and the right to equal protection under the 14th. Under the ordinance, city contractors are required to fully disclose any sponsorship of or contract with the NRA. It was approved unanimously by the Los Angeles City Council in February. Now, I had to read that twice. It says City Council, not Politburo, but it does say City Council. It allows the city to terminate a contract if the contractor does not disclose all ties with the NRA. The ordinance cites the NRA's blocking of, quote, sensible gun safety reform, close quote, even in the aftermath of several mass shootings in the U.S. It says public funding provided to contractors with ties to the NRA, quote, undermines the city's efforts to legislate and promote gun safety. Quote, I support this policy. I'm confident in it, and we're not going to be bullied by the NRA. We're not going to be bullied, he said, as they enact this crazy city ordinance. That's a quote from Mayor Eric Garcetti. Other supporters of the ordinance called the NRA's lawsuit, quote, desperate. The NRA's First Amendment rights remain firmly in place while the city chooses to exercise its own rights to require disclosing who has ties to the NRA, so residents of Los Angeles know how and where their tax dollars are being spent. We see this, we see boycotts all the time, a bunch of some homosexual organization boycotted the Chick-fil-A restaurant, and these things happen. But when a city goes that far, I can understand why the NRA sued. Most importantly, we're not supposed to have to worry about being able to support our families because of our political views, especially due to government regulation. Yet that's precisely what we see out of Los Angeles. Honestly, I don't think this one survives a legal challenge. I think the city is going to be hard-pressed to find any constitutional grounds for requiring disclosure of such ties, except where a clear conflict of interest may lie. That's not what it's about. It's about sending a clear signal to gun rights supporters that, quote, our kind isn't wanted for contracts with the city of Los Angeles. Somewhere, I suppose, a spokesman from the city of Los Angeles would repeat the old, our strength is our diversity. For me, this isn't a big deal. They're not likely to fire up a Second Amendment supporting website anytime soon. So it's not like it'll impact me. It won't impact most of you either. But it will impact a lot of gun rights advocates who live in Southern California who may or may not want to apply for contracts with L.A. Due to the size of the city, contracts could be worth a fortune, and now they're expressly denied to anyone who doesn't hold the right views on gun rights. Oh, sure, it doesn't ask specific questions. Gun Owners of America members, for example, don't have to disclose any such ties. But we also have to look into the minds of those who wanted to pass this measure. In their mind, the NRA is the grand boogeyman. It's the only obstacle they can think of to gun rights being completely repealed. Not the 6 million members or anything, just the NRA. So they want to remove it. They want to punish gun rights supporters, and that means punishing people with ties to the NRA. Well, this article says it doesn't affect me, but in a way it does. You know, when the second largest city in the United States can go after a group of people that are relying on one of the constitutional amendments, it affects everybody. Once again, I would invoke the phenomenon of the slippery slope. So much for the Second Amendment. I go from there to Zemi Ikotny. Theme music. We started out with the theme from Peter Gunn for the Second Amendment. Now when we go to Zemi Ikotny, which also is called Meet the Press, we play the theme from Meet the Press just to get you kind of in the right frame of mind to deal with the task that I undertake here every day at the beginning of the program, where I look at the editorials from each of the newspapers, try to find some merit in them, and when I find the more meritorious of the two, I award a coveted, oh, wait a minute, I have the wrong pen there, coveted Blue Star. And while I'm at it, I also examine the editorials for English grammar, usage. There's a little fact check involved, etc. And at the end, one of the editorials almost always gets the Blue Star. Right now, I've been doing this on Tall Tales since there's been a Tall Tales, and I started keeping score going back to when Tall Tales moved to The Point. And since that time, the Post has won the coveted Blue Star 105 times, as you were, 106 times. The Daily News, 39. So here's the Daily News today. You're not going to have to fasten your seatbelts for this one. Our view, make sure your family vaccinated against measles. The CDC said Wednesday that measles in the United States has climbed to its highest level in 25 years. Have you ever had measles, real Joe Cruz?
No, sir, I haven't.
You know, back in the day when I was a youngster, every kid got measles and chicken pox and mumps.
Really?
Yeah. It just would go through town like
had
wildfire.
No.
And then the city health officer would come around with a big yellow sign with black letters on it that said measles, quarantine, and nail it to your front door. And you couldn't go outside and play for 2 whole weeks. You missed all that, huh?
Yeah, luckily.
Yeah. But the good news is that once you've had those childhood diseases, you're immune. You can never get them again.
Nice.
So roughly 3/4 of those cases are in the 2 ultra-Orthodox Jewish communities in New York. With the end of school rapidly approaching, many families are setting up their plans for summer travel. I guess you wouldn't want to go to those 2 ultra-Orthodox communities in New York if you haven't had your measles shot. Visiting other destinations should be fun and relaxing. You don't want to spend any of that time sick or contagious. That's why it's important to take measures so that you and your family are adequately protected against diseases and other public health threats. The Department of Public Health and Social Services urges residents who will be traveling to ensure that they are vaccinated. Real Joe Cruz, you're not traveling. No.
No.
All right. I won't allow it. In the United States, most of the measles cases result from international travel. Worldwide, 19 cases of measles per 1 million people are reported each year, and about 89,780 people die, according to the CDC. Measles outbreaks have been reported recently in the continental United States, including New York City, Washington State, and the region in the Philippines, Japan, South Korea, China, Australia. Man, that's our neighborhood. The outbreak in the Philippines has resulted in 28,362 reported cases and 389 deaths. Most deaths were children under 5 years of age. Measles is primarily spread by person-to-person contact and starts with fever, runny nose, cough, red eyes, and sore throat, followed by a rash that spreads over the body. The disease is highly contagious and spreads via coughing and sneezing. Now, I'm pretty considerate. There have been a couple of times when I've had to go on the air and I had a cough. Remember that, Real Joe Cruz? So on those days when I had a cough, I cautioned you to put a handkerchief over the speaker on your phone or your computer or wherever you happen to be listening to Tall Tales, because I didn't want to expose you to the germs of my cough. And then there's some recommendations from Public Health. Public Health also encourages residents, not just those who are traveling, to get vaccinated against measles to protect themselves from the disease, etc. All healthcare providers in Guam should be on the alert for possible cases of measles, so on. So, once again, this could have been a pretty good public health advisory. It could have been a pretty good news story. Although it has a call to action, it falls way, way short of being an editorial. I don't think, outside of those small communities in New York, I don't think there will be vigorous advocacy to persuade people not to get vaccinated against measles. So I don't really see the point of calling this an editorial and running it in the editorial page. On the other hand, it is better than the USA Today editorials that we get stuck with too much of the time. So for that reason, I'm going to give the Daily News a first, something we've never done before. So I'm not going to give them a grade with my blue pencil, but I will give them a ceremonial case of the measles. Yeah. Okay, so you're cheering because they got the measles? Okay, so that is a historic first for Tall Tales, where an editorial actually got the measles. Most editorial writers would much prefer to get the coveted blue star. Okay, so we go from there to the Post. And the Post, AG steps up to the challenge. Just when some of the members of our rate-paying public had given up hope that someone in authority would have the courage to call out the Guam Power Authority and Water Authority's executive managers' bonuses and raises, which had been discussed in detail behind closed doors, Our elected Attorney General came through. Attorney General Levin Camacho on Thursday morning stated that GWA and GPA managers who receive bonuses or raises during closed-door meeting discussions should pay back those financial perks. That's a win for the ratepayers who have felt that GWA and GPA managers didn't deserve raises and bonuses amid the higher rates for water and increased cost of power. Many of our ratepayers cannot forget that GWA has failed to significantly reduce the years-long massive loss of water supply and due in part due to leaks, and that even a credit rating agency has expressed concern with Guam residents' ability to stretch their budget to afford water. Additionally, GPA's temporary loss of nearly 20% of the island's power generating capacity after a 2015 fire at the Cabras power plant and the agency's continued reliance on mostly fossil fuels have not exactly given the public much enthusiasm to support the raises and bonuses for top managers at both utilities. The Office of Attorney General reviewed the minutes of the November 27 Consolidated Commission on Utilities meeting and determined that discussions around salary adjustments for key GPA and GWA officials held behind executive session. I think they mean held behind closed doors, not held behind executive session, but violated the open government law. The open government law prohibits such discussions and provides in relevant part, under no circumstances shall a public agency hold an executive or closed meeting to discuss salaries, salary levels, or salary adjustments of any employee or officer. All such discussions must be held in public meeting, and any minutes shall be kept and open to the public. That's what the Attorney General said. Now, the next step is for the AG to look into how to hold the CCU commissioners accountable. A little more than 2 years ago, Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority members were charged in court for allegedly holding secret meetings that should have been public. Will this case arise to a similar level that led to the filing of charges against some of GURA's now former board members? Only time will tell. We also urge the AG to review meetings at other revenue-generating agencies, such as the Guam Power Airport Authority, Guam Visitors Bureau, and other government agencies to ensure they too complied with government transparency law. It doesn't hurt to do some digging. I kind of thought that was my job. Well, whatever works, right, Real Joe Cruz? Through the AG's response to the issue, some of the members of our taxpayer and ratepayers' public's hopes for responsive government have been restored. For now. As one of our many commenters voicing support for the AG's action stated, I thought he was going to make a political decision, but he made the right decision. Good job. Okay, now on the matter of the legality of doing what the CCU did, I have the law in front of me. I've read it before, but it bears repeating. This is 5 GCA 8115. The subtitle of this section is Penalties and Court Jurisdiction. Subsection A. The Superior Court shall have jurisdiction to enforce any action brought as a result of the violation of this chapter. Any person shall have standing to sue for enforcement of this chapter. B. Each member of a public agency who attends a meeting of a public agency where an action is taken in violation of any provision of this chapter, with knowledge of the fact that the meeting is in violation thereof, is guilty of a misdemeanor. So that means that if the members of the CCU knew that their executive session meeting was a violation of the open government law, they could be charged with a misdemeanor. Now, I'll come back and tell you why I think it would, as a matter of law, be very difficult for the members of the CCU to deny knowledge of the open government law. Right after this quick break.
GRMC's Neuroscience and Neurology Department treats a wide spectrum of disorders associated with the nervous system, spine, and brain. Some of the more common disorders include seizures, epilepsy, dementia, sleep disorders, migraine, and stroke, which is one of the leading causes of death on Guam. GRMC's neuroscience team is equipped with the latest technology and the finest neurological doctors. To make an appointment, contact GRMC Specialty Clinics at 645-5500.
In illness and in wellness, Calvo's Select Care is health care that is there for you. That's why over 80% of the Guam medical community places their trust and insures with us. We offer our members wellness and fitness programs for a healthier lifestyle and provide a comprehensive medical network on and off island to help members from unexpected illnesses. Contact Calvo's Select Care today for more information.
Back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Well, you know the old saying, ignorance of the law ain't no excuse. And that holds generally, but this statute here is a little different than most because it does recognize the lack of knowledge as an affirmative defense to a criminal prosecution. So if the 5 commissioners said, you know, we didn't know that we couldn't do that, the thing that would really work against them is this. They had 2 lawyers in that executive session with them. So if you got lawyers participating with you in an action that breaks the law, it's pretty hard to say, well, you can't prosecute me because I didn't know about it. I think the knowledge that the lawyers ought to have had is chargeable to the commissioners. If not, no one could ever be prosecuted for anything. So I hope that Attorney General Levin Camacho takes a good, hard look at this. We don't want to be doing this all the time, and it happens too frequently. Yesterday, I pointed out that Steve Ignacio, the new chief of police, had to pony up $1,000 because he disobeyed the Sunshine Law dealing with disclosure of public documents. So citizens are well served when meetings are held in the open and when public documents are easily obtained. And when that isn't the case, citizens are not well served. This whole kerfuffle with the CCU being the fine example. I don't think that there were people who read the story about what the CCU did and then they were out there cheering, saying, hooray for the CCU. You see what they did? They gave those hard-working managers who've done so well, they cut right through the red tape and gave those guys raises way back in January. Hooray for the CCU. I kind of doubt that that's what the popular sentiment is out there. And then I pointed out another open government violation with an agency that has broken just about every law but gravity. That would be the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. And I had an article here, I don't have it with me today, that ran in the Marianas Business Journal that very casually said that the CCU meeting was held behind closed doors. One of the problems we have is reporters, sometimes reporters don't recognize a story when it jumps right up and bites them in the nose. When you see a government agency a border commission meeting behind closed doors, that ought to set off an alarm bell inside your brain housing group. This is probably wrong. And if they've done it right, you'll know that they're doing it right because there's a certain ritual that they have to go through. But if a public agency just all of a sudden says, well, we're going to go into executive session now, reporters out there, that's something for you to dig into. Haul out your iPad or your phone, go to the Guam Code Annotated, go to chapter, as you were to Title 5, and go to chapter, I think it's 8 on the open government, on the, as you were, that's freedom of information. Go to chapter 10, that's open government. And if the agency is violating the open government law, regardless of what they did or didn't do at that meeting, the violation of the open government law is probably a bigger story than the one that you went there to cover. Okay, so that's the daily, as you were, that's the Post editorial. And I've mentioned before that you don't necessarily have to be on the same wavelength as Tall Tales to get the Blue Star. It doesn't hurt. But here, the Post and Tall Tales are, as lawyers would say, on all fours. If you matched up the four corners of their position and the four corners of my position, it's an exact match. On the other hand, we had an historic first today when the Daily News editorial came down with a case of the measles. So no measles for the Post, and no, not even a drum. You can save the drum roll, real Joe Cruz. There's no suspense here. This is another one for the Guam Post. I wonder if they have, noisemakers and things like that down at the Post to celebrate when they get the Blue Star. Of course, they get it so often. I'm hoping that they're not feeling like the thrill is gone because they get the thing so often. So that makes the score 107 for the Post. Daily News 39. Okay, I've got our Tom. Our Tom has kind of developed a pattern here, Real Joe Cruz, hasn't he? Good afternoon, our Tom.
Hi, good afternoon, Bob. I was just wondering, how did you find out about those pay raises?
There was a story in the Post that talked about the pay raises.
Say again?
There was a story in the Post that mentioned the pay raises. And the story very casually said that the pay raises were done in executive session. And, of course, whenever I see the word executive session, it's like waving a red flag in front of a bull. I come charging out. And so I that night, the night of that story, I chatted it up on Tall Tales. And the next morning, that chat appeared in the Guam Post, where Tall Tales was quoted quite a few times. And then I had to go into my Rush Limbaugh routine that Real Joe Cruz likes so much when I say, Real Joe Cruz, I don't like to talk about myself that much, but this time I have to.
I was just wondering, how did the Post find out about it? Did they just got lucky?
They were apparently at the meeting when and they apparently had an open session meeting and then went into executive session. And then came out and announced that when they came out of executive session for 22 seconds and said, George Bamba moved, I move to accept the pay raises that we just discussed in executive session. It was unanimous. So I don't know the exact mechanics of how the Post reporter got it, but I gave him an Eagle Eye Award for coming up with it because obviously it went somewhere, right, Tom?
Yeah. So he closed doors that is decided to give them raises and bonuses, then they evidently they knew that they have to be made public. So immediately they say, okay, let's open it as public. So as soon as they opened it, within 22 seconds, they went ahead and somebody made a move and somebody seconded it and they approved it.
Exactly. Yeah, but the law says you can't even discuss pay raises in executive session.
That's right, yeah. I was just wondering how in the future can we detect these things from happening under our noses. You know, I was just wondering whether the Post just got lucky that they had a reporter in there.
I don't know, but I'm going to make the respectful suggestion that whenever any, in fact, I just did, whenever any newspaper reporter goes to any of these meetings, be on the alert for the E word, and don't take any executive session for granted. Don't assume that the board is following the law when they go into executive session. Pull out that copy of 5 GCA Title 10 and make sure they're doing it right, because the reward for the reporter is, as I mentioned, breaking the open government law may very well be a bigger story than the story that the reporter went to cover. And that was the case with that Chamorro Land Trust Commission meeting in executive session. They kept everybody waiting around and handled rather routine business. And then they went into executive session and made some decisions.
But I was just wondering if one of our government agency wants to pull a fast one, where they're going to keep it a secret from the reporter, and the reporter from any newspaper doesn't show up at all because they didn't know that they're going to go into a meeting behind closed doors.
Well, they're supposed to list that in their agenda. The way it's supposed to be done, the agenda for the meeting is supposed to be published along with the notice for the meeting. And if they're going to have an executive session, it should say executive session dealing with whatever. But most of them don't even do that. The school board thinks it's okay to have this boilerplate agenda. And on the boilerplate, the words executive session are always last. Now, I called them on that once, and they had to go back and do a do-over. But boards and commissions are very sloppy in their adherence to the open government law.
Yeah, like you were saying earlier, they had a lawyer in there. Maybe that lawyer is part of the conspiracy, you know?
Well, we'll find out.
Wanted a pay raise too. Did he get one too?
Both of the lawyers got pay raises, yeah.
Maybe that was their goal. They wanted the money too.
It must have been for superior performance, right?
Yeah. All right, Bob. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. So once again, we've got a pair of Toms to start the program. It's a really good way to start the program. Pair of Toms. Good afternoon, Dr. Poole.
Good afternoon, Judge. Thank you. Judge, I'm sorry I missed the first half of the show. I was in a meeting. So did you know that one of those who received the pay raise has already returned the pay raise? Were you aware of that?
No, I wasn't.
Yes, sir. Well, Miguel Mordalio, who I know, and I happen to know that Miguel left a much more lucrative job to take this one simply because he wanted to try to make things better. I know that's what politicians always say, but Miguel's not a politician, and he really and truly did that. So last night at the meeting, in fact, if I could read you Miguel's statement, it's brief. He said, I would like to thank the board and especially you, Mr. Chairman, for your confidence, support, and recognition. I believe that the media reports and the commentary regarding the salary adjustment issue do not reflect the board's true intent in advancing the utilities, and the suggestion of any ill intent or bad faith by anyone is simply ridiculous. Unfortunately, this is what is out there, and however far from the truth it is a distraction from the important work that needs to be done. While the board has not provided any direction on this issue pending consultation with counsel, and as a professional, I understand and respect the process that needs to occur, I nonetheless want to publicly and on the record return the bonus and pay amount to date. And he handed the acting CFO a check. So Miguel is completely out from under this.
Well, that's great. Kudos to Miguel.
I think so too, and I'm so glad, and Miguel probably is too, that you brought this up. Knowing Miguel as I do, I doubt that he was ever comfortable with any of this. So I just wanted you to know that, like Don Quixote, your search, finding an honest man. There's one out there, and that's Miguel.
Yeah, well, that's when I'm wearing my Diogenes hat, my Diogenes hand.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, tilting at windmills. That's Don Quixote, and I do both on a regular basis.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Tom.
Bye.
Okay, well, that is good news, and it ties into some of the things I'm going to say when we get to that item on the card, which will be coming up here pretty quick. So let's see, where was I here? Yeah, the open government law and a respectful request to all reporters. If you go to any meeting of a board or a commission and that board or commission goes into executive session, be suspicious. And you may, you may find something out. Okay, so that's Demi Ikotny for today. I'm going to go now to the card. And I've got some repeaters on the card and some new material. I start out with Pritzker versus Coleman. Pritzker versus Coleman. And then I've got Lacia Casil versus Bobby Alvarez. I've got Lighthizer versus Ignacio. Of course, I've got the AG versus Joey Duenas. And Noquette versus Torres. PICA versus the open government law, I guess I already covered as part of Demi Ikotny, so maybe I won't need to do that again. And I never really did justice to Ken LG versus Joe Arnett. So I've been kind of peeking at the Facebook out of the corner of my eye here. So before I go to Coleman versus Pritzker, let me see what clever comments I've got on Facebook here. Brad Hewitt says, David Hogg, the mic and narrative. Well, Brad knows who I'm talking about. The other governor, Ken Leon Guerrero, can we depend on the AG's office to take the lead on filing charges against the CCU members for violating the law, or leave it up to the public to do hard work to bring charges to the enforcement of Guam laws? Well, Ken, the only person that can bring criminal charges is a prosecutor. And for us, that would be the Attorney General. He doesn't prosecute the cases himself. He has a he has a deputy who is the prosecutor. And even the prosecutor, that deputy for prosecution, doesn't prosecute all the cases himself. He accomplishes his duties with the with the aid of assistant attorneys general. But either the Attorney General or the chief prosecutor would be the one who decides whether or not to prosecute any particular matter. And a prosecutor has about as much unfettered discretion as you'll find anywhere in our system of government. If a prosecutor decides he doesn't want to prosecute, nobody in government can force him to prosecute. If a prosecutor decides that he does want to prosecute, then it's very, very difficult to stop him from prosecuting. So the public has no official role in the decision as to who or what to prosecute for what, if anything. So if the AG decides to prosecute, it'll happen. If not, it won't. The Attorney General, I suspect, will tell you that he can exercise his discretion, perhaps, since this is a single incident, especially if the money gets paid back right away. maybe the Attorney General could make a good faith argument that prosecution wouldn't be warranted here. As far as a prosecutorial discretion, I once again remind you of Kim Foxx, who decided that Jussie Smollett should not be prosecuted even before she filed charges against him. Let's see, I think that's the only comments that I've got dealing with this particular item. So I hear the real Joe Cruz playing Dave Brubeck's Take 5 in the background. So we'll take a short break and come back to Komen versus Pritzker.
Get a free Polar Pop any size when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a free coffee any size when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get $5 off any Circle K car wash package when you purchase $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy.
Docomo Pacific's all-new business bundles provide tailored solutions to help your business become a better business. Choose from our Business Basic, Essential, or Value bundles and get unlimited talk and text, worry-free data at home and abroad, plus access to the fastest online speeds in the Marianas. Add on mobile or broadband lines and save up to 20% for each line. Email businesssales@docomopacific.com to find out which bundle provides the best solution for your business. Terms and conditions apply.
So here we are back with Komen versus Pritzker. J.B. Pritzker is the new governor of Illinois. Just to identify him for you, I don't think I need to spend a whole lot of time telling you about what Komen is. And if you don't know, you will by the time I finish with this item on the card. So this item is something that I plucked from Town Hall again. J.B. Pritzker can't be trusted, the Illinois Republican Party sounded off Wednesday after learning that the governor, along with his wife and brother-in-law, is under federal investigation. You could say that his reputation is in the toilet. Last year, a Cook County Inspector General investigation revealed that Pritzker removed the toilets in his Chicago mansion so he could lower his property tax bill by $331,000. It was dubbed a scheme to defraud taxpayers. An Illinois governor under federal criminal investigation 101 days into office must be a new record, even for Illinois. Republican Party Chairman Tim Schneider said in a statement, "We already knew Pritzker was a serial tax dodger. He stashes millions offshore in zero-tax Bahamas bank accounts and took the toilets out of his Chicago mansion to dodge $330,000 in property taxes." The Cook County Independent Inspector General called it a scheme to defraud taxpayers. Yet Pritzker continues to push tax hikes on Illinois families and businesses. Absurd hypocrisy from Pritzker. So that's kind of the essence of the argument. It's no place like Illinois. You know, I think something like 5 of the last 7 governors have wound up in prison. I'm not sure on the numbers, but it happens all the time. Okay, let's see. Oh, I've got Jimmy on the line here. Good afternoon, Jimmy.
Oh, howdy. I'm calling today on behalf of West, W-E-S-T.
West, okay.
Women's, Stoats, and the Tomcats.
Women's?
Weasels, Ermine, Stoats, and Tomcats. Now, I heard you saying something bad about weasels.
Oh, okay. I said something bad about weasels?
Yes.
Oh.
They want to get weasels.
Well, why should weasels be different from anybody else, Jimmy?
Well, they deserve their high salary, and they deserve. Anyway, they're just weasels.
Okay.
But anyway, we monitor the Guam media daily.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody says something bad about weasels, like don't catch weasels or beware of weasels, we have to stand up.
I've heard people tell other people, don't try to weasel out of this now.
See, that's what I mean.
Uh-huh.
You put a negative connotation on weasel.
Yeah.
I will have you know, some of our best weasels work in Gov Guam.
Okay.
So they should be respected.
I hadn't thought of it in those terms, Jimmy, but as usual, you have your own view on some things.
Yeah, and we bring in the ferrets, too.
Okay, so should...
We got the weasels, the ermines, the stoats, and the tomcats, and maybe we'll bring in the ferrets. Then we'll have to change our acronym.
Okay. Well, do you think that as far as Tall Tales is concerned, I should denominate today as Be Kind to Weasels Day?
Well, that's up to you. It's your show.
It is indeed my show, yeah. But would you petition for that, Jimmy, that I name today the Be Kind to Weasels Day?
Well, let's put it to a vote.
All right.
A vote or a referendum or a plebiscite. Let's put it.
Oh, okay. How do you vote, Jimmy?
No, I'm neutral.
You're neutral. Okay. Real Joe Cruz, how do you vote? Should we make today Be Kind to Weasels Day? Hey, wait a minute. No, I want an answer. I don't want you to try to weasel out of this, Real Joe Cruz.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Be Kind to Weasels Day?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's cast a unanimous ballot then for Tall Tales. I will vote in favor of denominating today Be Kind to Weasels Day. Yeah. Now, you talk about making the news cycle. I mean, that's going to be wire service all over the world. Tall Tales denominates Be Kind to Weasels Day.
Yeah, but we still haven't got the ferrets yet.
Well, one day at a time, Jimmy. You know, I can't handle too much of this high pressure work at one sitting. So, can we just let it go with weasels?
Yeah, as long as you keep the ferrets in the back of your mind.
I'll do it, Jimmy. Thanks a lot for the really valuable suggestion, Jimmy. We always look forward to your calls.
Bless your soul. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Let's see, I got a post here. Let's talk 8115. The Supreme Court shall have jurisdiction to enforce any action brought as a violation. Any person shall have standing to sue. Yeah. So any person can bring an action for an injunction against people violating the open government law. But that doesn't mean any person can bring criminal charges, Ken. Okay, so I finished. Maybe I'll just spend a minute or two more with Mr. Pritzker. That TZK sound doesn't roll off your tongue very easily, does it? Pritzker. Klitzkie. It's kind of a tongue twister. Okay, well, it's time for that big halftime show we have every day at 1700. So enjoy the halftime show. And after the show, we'll come back to Lasia Casil versus Bobby Alvarez.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
He's not calling it a witch hunt anymore. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. President Trump upping the rhetoric about the FBI's counterintelligence investigation into his campaign, telling Fox's Sean Hannity it was an attempted coup. The president reaffirming he will soon declassify and release the FISA warrants used to surveil his campaign aides and other documents from the investigation, saying he wanted to do it sooner.
Glad I waited, because I thought that maybe they would obstruct if I did it early, and I think I was right.
The number of contenders for the Democrats' presidential nomination has now reached 20, with former Vice President Joe Biden's announcement that he's in. First order of business, raising money.
Former Vice President Joe Biden spoke for about 15 minutes to about 150 donors in suburban Philadelphia at the home of a wealthy Democratic mega donor and Comcast executive. The fact is that Biden may have the front-runner status, but Joe needs dough, and he needs it fast. Lacking a robust small donor database, Biden is targeting wealthy corporate donors early on to catch up with Senator Bernie Sanders, who leads the pack with more than $20 million in the bank.
Fox's Brian Yennis. A fiery crash in Denver has caused multiple fatalities. According to police in the Denver suburb of Lakewood, Colorado, they say an out-of-control semi-truck struck a bridge and then more than a dozen other vehicles.
Several people are dead. We don't know an exact number, neither do police. The hospital tells us 8 people are hurt, 7 of those in fair condition, the other in good condition. We also know a firefighter was hurt when he was hit by debris from an explosion.
That's Jeremy Hubbard of Denver's Fox 31. I-70 just west of downtown Denver is closed and will probably stay that way through the morning rush hour. Asian stocks closing Friday mixed, as did Wall Street on Thursday. The Dow is off more than 20 points. This is Fox News.
This is Ronnie. Ronnie is about to break his piggy bank.
Come on, piggy bank.
Ronnie wants to upgrade his smartphone.
And this piggy's gonna help me.
If Ronnie had signed up for GTA's handset payment option, he could have selected a new smartphone with an affordable monthly plan.
I could have what?
Exactly. Sign up for HBO at GTA and don't break the bank.
I'm sorry, piggy bank.
Terms and conditions apply. Visit GTA.net for more information. GTA.
We have some really great home loan programs, but did you know we have great business loans too? Every day we're working with companies to purchase equipment, to buy or build properties, or make tenant improvements. We offer letters of credit, working capital, and term loans, and we make all of our credit decisions here. Commercial loans, commercial banking from Bank Pacific.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Viva Bank Pacific.
Lawyers for New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft will be in a Florida courtroom this morning arguing to keep video recordings made inside a Florida day spa sealed.
Patriots owner Robert Kraft is pleading not guilty to misdemeanor charges relating to a sex sting at the Orchids of Asia spa in Jupiter, Florida. And while a trial is not happening soon, prosecutors from Palm Beach County say they have to make evidence public, which includes surveillance video recorded inside the facility where Kraft is alleged to have paid money for sex. But Kraft's lawyers say the warrant, which allowed for police to set up recording equipment, is legally flawed, and therefore recordings should be disallowed in court and never be shown. In Miami, Eben Brown, Fox News.
A Christchurch, New Zealand businessman has pleaded guilty to sharing a live stream video that was recorded by a gunman last month as he began killing 50 people at 2 mosques in New Zealand. Philip Arps pleading guilty to 2 counts of distributing the mosque video. He faces a maximum 14 years in prison. New Zealand's chief censor banned both the video and the manifesto written by the white supremacist accused of the attack, making it illegal to view, possess, or distribute either of them. Kim Jong-un and Russia's President Vladimir Putin have wrapped up their summit meeting in eastern Russia, with Putin saying he is willing to share details of the discussions he had with the Korean leader on denuclearization with President Trump. The NBA has lost a legend.
He gets it out deep, and Havlicek steals it over the stand show. Havlicek stole the ball. It's all over.
That call from the 1965 NBA Eastern Conference Finals was voted one of the 50 most memorable moments in NBA history. The Celtics report that John Havlicek has died in his home in Jupiter, Florida. The former Celtics and Ohio State star was 79 years old. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Ready to buy real estate on Guam? Congratulations! But what now? There are so many questions, so many things to do. Where do you start? The best place to start is to call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty, Guam's biggest name in real estate. They aren't the best because they're the biggest. They're the biggest because they're the best. Trust the name. Find out why. Call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty today. 888-2121. Trust the best.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
So, once again, a dynamic halftime show that we always have every day at 1700, enough to inspire even the meekest amongst us to great feats of courage. So we go to the next item on the card, Lacia Casil versus Bobby Alvarez. And starts out with a question, is the Guam Visitors Bureau leaving the LGBTQ out of LGBTQ pride? Just to make sure everybody understands the question, I'm going to read it again, all right? Is the Guam Visitors Bureau leaving the LGBTQ out of LGBTQ pride? And then it goes on to say Guam Pride. Now that's apparently a proper noun because pride, the P in pride is capitalized. Guam Pride is sounding off in Facebook. The LGBTQ organization called out GVB, questioning why it is sending heterosexual pageant queens to represent Guam at an LGBTQ Pride Festival in Tokyo. I better read that one too. The LGBTQ organization called out GVB, the Guam Visitors Bureau, questioning why GVB is sending heterosexual pageant queens to represent Guam at an LGBTQ Pride Festival in Tokyo. The Facebook post saying, quote, "We love Miss Guam Universe," close quote, "but why not send, quote, true representatives of our island's LGBTQ community," close quote. And then here's another quote. This is from Guam Pride founder Lacia Casil. She says, "I think it speaks the truth. Our community has worked very hard and overcome so many challenges to have our voices heard." And the quote goes on, "And Pride events happen once a year in every country, and it is the one time a year when a safe space is created for members of our community to come out and be themselves, to represent our community, to mingle with each other, to raise their voices. And I think it's very important that we have members of our community represent. Going on with the story, as reported on KUAM News, in 2017, GVB joined the International Gay and Lesbian Travel Association. And GVB, under former GM Nate DeKnight, announced plans to pursue LGBTQ tourism, which is a market that has a value of $50 to $70 billion. Casil tells KOM, it just doesn't make sense for GBT, as you were for GVB, for the Visitors Bureau, to not include LGBTQ members in its delegation to Tokyo Pride, especially since it has sent members of the community to Pride festivals before, especially with GVB wanting to go out and court this market, which is why they're going to Tokyo Pride, she said. Casil says GVB did not reach out to one LGBTQ pageant queen, but it was she said they did reach out to one LGBTQ pageant queen, but it was 2 weeks before the delegation was supposed to leave, and a casting call for LGBTQ members was canceled. She says, that's too little, too late. That's not a lot of notice, considering they knew about this event for months and months and months, Casil said. We asked Casil why she thinks GVB wouldn't try harder to bring LGBTQ members to an LGBTQ Pride event. An oversight? They've been doing this through going through a transition. Considering it's almost May, we asked if she thought the transition excuse could still be used for GVB. Probably not, Casil said. With several more Pride events on tap in Japan this year, and a local Pride festival also in the works, Casil says GVB has been supportive, but when it comes to including LGBTQ members in Pride trips abroad, she hopes the agency can do better. I think it's really important that members of our community, these are Casil's words, I think it's really important that members of our community that are pageant queens or advocates represent with our own voices, she said. Meanwhile, GVB acting president Bobby Alvarez said in a statement on the issue, quote, Guam Visitors Bureau is proud to represent our island at the Tokyo Pride event this year, which it was approved by our board of directors. We did put out a call for all current title holders for this event, and Miss Universe was the only one available that could go. So our team proceeded with planning based on availability. We have communicated that with Ms. Casil, and we look forward to working with her for future local and international Pride events, as well as a better availability from title holders and the LGBTQ plus community. We are all on the same page that whoever represents Guam equally represents it with pride. It's a very interesting story. And then The Facebook post is here too, and it reads, and this is, why is Guam Visitors Bureau sending heterosexual, cisgender pageant queens to pride events overseas to represent our island? I better read that again. Why is Guam Visitors Bureau sending heterosexual, cisgender pageant queens to pride events overseas to represent our island? We love Miss Universe Guam Athena McNinch, but why not send Miss Queen of the Pacific or Miss Pacificana, true representatives of our island's LGBTQ community? Let our LGBTQ community represent ourselves and our truth. We don't need a cisgendered heterosexual person speaking for us. We have our own voice. Now let's go back again to Bobby's comments. We're all on the same page that whoever represents Guam equally represents it with pride. Well, unless you buy into the intersexuality group rights theory of government, Bobby, then this word equally means absolutely nothing. Because it's obvious from from Lassia Casil's remarks and this Facebook post that equally is not part of it. It's all about identity politics. Sentences like, let our LGBTQ community represent ourselves and our truth. So there isn't a single truth afloat anymore. Each group has its own truth. We don't need this sounds like something out of Treasure of Sierra Madre, if you remember that famous scene. We don't need a cisgendered heterosexual person speaking for us. We have our own voice. Well, so much for the Guam Visitors Bureau and the LGBTQ community. I guess before the Guam Visitors Bureau spends any money on sending people to any events off island, they've got to clear it with the LGBTQ community first. Okay, next item on the card here is Lighthizer versus Ignacio. And I've got an article here. Ignacio was confirmed, I believe it was last night, because Ms. Lighthizer sent another letter. And I have the another letter right here in front of me. And she says, I am writing this in response to your request for clarification, and it's to Senator Pito Terlaje, as well as a recommendation statement from a mental health perspective regarding the candidate's fitness for duty status after the follow-up evaluation completed. And this is bold, underlined, based on his clinical interview and follow-up on recommendations as presented in his initial fitness for duty evaluation, Mr. Stephen Ignacio is deemed, no, I don't think she means deemed, because deemed, you use the word deemed to let the reader know that a legal fiction follows. What she really needs to say there is that she finds that that Stephen Ignacio is fit from a mental health perspective for consideration in the position of chief of police. Candidate has taken seriously the recommendations provided in his initial evaluation to include follow-up with a medical clearance evaluation to ensure his public health and safety. And then skipping down near the bottom, because of his successful compliance with those recommendations, he is cleared for consideration of the position of chief of the Guam Police Department from a mental health perspective, with the caveat that he is to continue these efforts. Now, this whole Ignacio affair has taken on the aura of a circus, and the ringmaster of the circus is Senator Pito Terlaje. So you'll recall that when Ignacio came on for his confirmation hearing, there were a packed house, lavish in its praise for Ignacio, one of whom was the chairman of the committee himself, Pito Terlaje, who said things like, "I guarantee you're going to be confirmed." And Senator Ted Nelson wants this to go unanimous, so I'm going to tell all 15 of them to vote for you. This was the chairman of the committee. And as I've remarked before, while he's saying this, he has Lighthizer first letter in his pocket, and he's had it since the 5th of March. And Lighthizer's letter says, "I don't find him fit to be chief of police." So rather than move the matter forward, Terlaje stopped it. And then he said, well, I'm going to get an evaluation from another psychologist. And then I wondered, should we start an inter-office pool here to see how many evaluations we're going to need before we get the one we want? Mark called and said that if the second evaluation were favorable, we needed a third because it should go on a 2/3 vote. But apparently that wasn't necessary, because when I read Lighthizer's letter, she says, "I am writing this in response to your request for clarification, as well as a recommendation statement from a mental health perspective regarding the candidate's fitness for duty." So, you know, this whole thing is been done in such a not slow, not fast, but half-fast manner as to make everybody wonder what's going on. So, you know, my suspiciousness comes to the surface, and I'm thinking, well, do we have a candid camera picture of Pito Terlaje twisting Dr. Lighthizer's arm, saying, "Would you like to try again?" Because you know, we and you have caught a lot of flack over this last one. Is that what happened? When Pito said he was going to get an evaluation from another psychologist, and then instead of that, he just gets another one from the same one. This whole thing just doesn't look good at all. And, of course, the timing was really awful on this because the court decision didn't come down until after the committee hearing was over. But Ignacio, the new chief of police, starts out by being fined $1,000 for violating the Sunshine Law. Would that be enough to weigh in the confirmation process? Do we want chiefs of police who start out by disobeying the law? You're not even going to talk about that, because Pito, you're in such a rush to get this guy confirmed, no matter what you got to do it, apparently. So when I look at all this, and of course, here we are, the members of the public, it's our chief of police. It's not the legislature's chief of police. It's not even the governor's chief of police. It's our chief of police, because he's responsible for all the cops. And the cops have an awful lot to do with the safety of every single one of us here. So I'm as interested in this as you are, Pito Terlaje. I just don't have the ability to do the crazy things that you've done in the handling of this matter. As I go through some of the papers here, and that's all we can do because no one has been forthcoming and open and told us what's really going on here. But as I go through the papers, I can develop a theory. And you'll remember that the first Lighthizer letter mentioned medical evaluation, etc., and made recommendations to Ignacio as to what he should do. Well, then the next thing that happened is that Vince Akimoto comes forward with a medical evaluation, and he says that his evaluation revealed normal mental status and hemodynamic stability. So again, this is almost like some kind of a board game, you know, like Monopoly or something like that. You take all the clues and try to figure out what actually happened. Lighthizer said over and over again, if you could see my whole report, you'd understand. Well, now all we can do is guess what was in her report. And this is the best guess I can come up with, but I'll open the field to others. It could very well have been that when Lighthizer sat down and talked with Steve Ignacio, and some of this came out later, he said, you know, we have these new physical standards that all cops are going to have to comply with, including me. And I'm not so sure that I'll be able to meet those standards because of my fill in the blank. High blood pressure, atrial fibrillation. I don't know what would go in that blank. And because of that, I'm really kind of edgy. So Lighthizer then says, well, you know, because of this, because of his edginess, I don't think he's fit. But there are some things that he can do about his physical condition that would give him the peace of mind necessary to handle the stress of being chief of police. Now, this is just me looking through these papers and trying to make sense out of them after Pito Terlahi got in there and stirred them all up with a stick. So after Ignacio talked to Vince, perhaps Vince said, these are some things that you need to do to help you deal with whatever it was, high blood pressure or whatever else. And if you do that and go to the gym every day, when it's time for that physical, you know, that PT, the new PT standards, you'll be able to pass. And this causes Ignacio to heave a huge sigh of relief, saying, okay, now I can take that job with confidence. That's the only, I'm reading the tea leaves here, but that's all that Terlahi has given us out of this whole mess is tea leaves. So we have to sit around and read the tea leaves and try to figure out what's going on with arguably one of the most important people in our whole government. And Terlahi has known about this for a long, long time. And as I mentioned before, it appears that he's trying to slide it under the radar because no mention was made of the Lighthizer letter at Ignacio's confirmation hearing. And an eagle-eyed reporter dug it out of a 140-page committee report. Otherwise, it might have gone by unnoticed, like executive sessions at board and commission meetings. So this is really a sad chapter for the whole confirmation process, for the way the legislature, in this particular case, this chairman, dealt with this confirmation process. Now, at the same time, we had Esther Agagi who came on for confirmation. And, you know, there were some black marks against Esther Agagi. She got a letter of reprimand from the Adjutant General of the National Guard. And the letter of reprimand was based on a $30,000 plus irregularity. And I don't think that was mentioned at the confirmation hearing at all. I haven't taken a look through the committee report, but my suspicion is that it's not even mentioned. So it appears that the rule is that if no senator has a personal grievance with the nominee, and the nominee is able to pack the House with people who say what a wonderful person the nominee is, what a wonderful person they are, real Joe Cruz, then Pito Terlahi will trip over himself to get that confirmation rammed through as quickly as he could. Okay, so we're going to start the Jack Haddock treasure hunt here right after the 7th inning stretch.
Attention homeowners, MRE solar energy systems now come with battery storage for zero money down. This means that your home will have power even when the island power isn't available, like during power outages or during and after storms. The inconvenience of not having power for your home is a thing of the past. It's solar with battery storage exclusively by Micronesia Renewable Energy. Don't be left in the dark. Call 632-2613 for a free consultation. MRE. The smarter choice.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
And once again, the news from Wrigley Field is we don't know where Jack Haddock is. But we're going to keep looking. Okay, before I go back here to the confirmation process, I noticed out of the corner of my eye a post from Brad Hewitt on Casil, Lacia Casil versus Bobby Alvarez. And Brad says, how is Casil so sure that the hetero queen is indeed hetero? Good question. Really good question. And it kind of highlights some of the destinations you get to pretty quickly once you start this intersectionality group rights approach to awarding anything. In fact, part of any decision-making process. Good question, Brad. Okay, then back to Steve Ignacio. They held up Ignacio's confirmation because of the first Lighthizer letter. They got Lighthizer's letter yesterday, apparently sometime in the afternoon, and they instantly added it to the agenda so they could confirm Ignacio last night. There wasn't any, I'd like to read this letter, compare it with the first letter, and consider what this is all about before I... No. Hey, look, we got a letter from Lighthizer. It's okay. Aye. I'm voting aye. It's unanimous. You know, if we're going to do that, we don't need 15 people to do that. We can go out and hire one person to behave, you know, to make quick decisions like that. And it appears that this legislature values speed more than accuracy. We saw the same thing when it came time to approve the marijuana bill. You'll recall that they felt it necessary to vote on a Tuesday night, so they finished deliberating on the bill early Tuesday. They stopped everything else, engrossed the bill, and voted on it on Tuesday night instead of doing it the traditional way, which is go through the entire agenda, engross all the bills, and then vote on all the bills at the same time at a separate session. And, of course, this angered a lot of people that were having a town hall meeting that night because they passed the bill and basically mooted out that town hall meeting. So here is Terlahi trying to moot out some criticism on Ignacio, for instance, the fact that he violated the open government law. But what should have happened, the Post is correct, you know, all of these things should have been dealt with before this matter came forward, because it looks like just a rush to get Ignacio confirmed, regardless of what the psychologist said. It suggests that there was some arm twisting involved. It starts Ignacio off. He gets off to a really bad start as chief of police. It doesn't do Lighthizer reputation as a psychologist any good. And it probably all could have been prevented if Terlahi had come forward in the beginning with that Lighthizer letter, and if Lighthizer's advice had been followed. If you could see my whole letter, you'd understand. But, of course, we haven't. And since we couldn't, I had to go back and read about hemodynamics, etc., and grab a cup of tea leaves and try to read the tea leaves to try to figure out what actually went on here. And I suppose we'll never know what actually went on here and why what happened. Then this whole thing is further, the intrigue rises to another level when you remember that in the budget bill, there is language that would change the qualifications for the chief of police. It lowers the qualifications for the chief of police. Now, ordinarily, a bill that goes before the legislature, all parts of the bill must be germane. So you can't have a bill that renames a street, and in that same bill says that the bars have to close at 2 o'clock in the morning, because those two things would not be germane, one with the other. But the budget bill is one exception. A budget bill can have all kinds of provisions in it that are not germane to anything at all, certainly not to the appropriations contained in the budget. So why did the Leon Guerrero administration insert language in the budget bill to lower the qualifications for the chief of police? Was that kind of an insurance policy in case Ignacio didn't make it? Did Leon Guerrero know about what Lighthizer found when she appointed Ignacio? There's so many questions here, so few answers, and so many things that just stick in my mind that I can't forget. I can guarantee you're going to be confirmed. I got a call from Senator Nelson, and he wants this to be unanimous, so I'm going to tell them all to vote for you. I'm going to find another psychologist and get another evaluation. Not a good job. And then when we compare that with something else that was in the paper today, our Tom. Boy, that's all I'm getting is Jimmy and Tom's. Hello, Tom.
Hi again, Bob.
Sure.
There's something that still concerns me. I don't know if it concerns other people, but we have so many of this hit and run, and none of them's been solved as far as I know so far. I'm concerned that our police department does not have the talent, the ability to properly investigate these things. Maybe we ought to send some young, smart police department or detective over to the mainland for training and let that person graduate over there and let that person come and train other people. Because we cannot go on like this where we have so many hit and run, pedestrians being killed, and the driver just speeds off, and they're getting away with it.
Interesting point, Tom. You know, at one time, when Chief Scambluri was the chief, he sent 10 police officers to the Army Criminal Investigation course at Fort McClellan, Alabama. And those it was like a 4-month course. Those guys got a really good education. And ironically, one of the guys that went was Steve Ignacio, the chief of police. So one would think that he has some idea of the benefits of that kind of training.
Yeah, and I'm surprised he's not training other people here, you know, because somehow, is this just happening on TV, or is it just me? But you would think that our investigators, our detectives, should be going to auto parts stores, and maybe we need to have our lawmakers make a law that any parts store on Guam and any body shop, body repair shops on Guam need to be reporting to the Attorney General's office or to the police department what vehicles are coming in for repairs of dented fender, broken headlights, for example, or cracked windshield. Because normally,
sort of like when
high-speed vehicles, you know.
Sort of like when you go to the doctor with a bullet wound, right?
Yeah. But I'm just wondering if our investigators are even going to the stores to find out who's been buying a headlight lens or taillight lens or signal light lens, you know?
I know what you're saying, Tom. Yeah. Well, good points, Tom. We'll just have to watch the chief now that he's confirmed to see what he does with these ideas. Let's hope that he listens to tall tales.
Well, I think we need to activate that police commission again, right? We used to have it.
Yeah, but it had kind of a quasi-disciplinary aspect.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, it only has to do with internal affairs, right? Yeah.
That sort of thing, yeah.
All right, Bob, thanks.
Thanks for calling, Tom. So, see, we've still got one other Tom that we haven't heard from here for a couple of days, Tom Van Ingen. So we've had 2 Toms already. Tom Van Ingen, your turn. We'll be looking out for you. Okay, so the confirmation process. And then in today's post, there's an article, GIA nominee, hard coal facts ignored. Following a bruising confirmation hearing that left his nomination hung up in committee, GTA Executive Vice President Daniel Tydenko called on Governor Leland Guerrero to formally withdraw his name from consideration for appointment to the airport board. In his withdrawal letter, Tydenko is highly critical of the legislative process that derailed his nomination, writing, "The legislative body has been misused by people who are conflicted. As a result, the legislative process has been hijacked by those who appeal to fear and prejudice for their own political purposes." Tydenko received strong support from a number of witnesses at his confirmation hearing, including former Port GM Joanne Brown, Bank Pacific President Phil Flores, and businessman Sonny Hatta. So, you think that's what it takes, right? However, he was the subject of criticism by Burnett Stern Mano, the former marketing manager at the Port Authority, who was fired in December 2012, along with 6 other port employees, following allegations she had falsified a workers' compensation claim. Tydenko was chairman of the board at the time. Senator Mary Torres, who was Port Authority general manager when Tydenko was board chairman, opposed Tydenko's nomination to the GIAA board. Senator Talina Nelson, whose committee has oversight responsibility for the airport, decided not to advance Tydenko's nomination, citing Torres's testimony. She said there are serious shortcomings in Mr. Tydenko's suitability to serve on the GIA board. Tydenko wrote that the committee chairperson completely disregarded the exhibits provided to her. Those exhibits included sworn employee declarations and documents which clearly speak to the fraudulent workman's compensation claim, Tydenko wrote. He also cited Civil Service Commission transcripts where the employees attest and admitted to their misdeeds. The documents he provided to Nelson's committee, Tydenko wrote, starkly reveal what took place in December 2012 when 7 port employees and then General Manager Mary Torres were fired. The bottom line back then, Tydenko said, is that there was an attempt to fraudulently claim workman's comp benefits. I urge the community to be vigilant with this matter. Unfortunately, Tydenko wrote, the hard, cold facts appear to have been ignored, along with a wide-ranging testimony delivered to Nelson's office by citizens of this community who have favorably attested to my character. Tydenko said, the most important matter here is that the truth be known. So, a tale, Charles Dickens, a tale of two cities, but this time it's a tale of two confirmations. You know, with Steve Ignacio, Pito Trelawney, the chairman, just plows ahead, tips his hand, even though he knows that there's a serious problem with the confirmation, publicly announces at the hearing that Ignacio is going to be confirmed, sweeps aside the psychologist's evaluation, gets another one, and away we go. It's over so quickly. Dan Tydenko comes down, submits himself to the hearing process, comports himself quite well, has some favorable testimony. People that were fired during the time that he was chairman spoke out against him. As Gomer Pyle would say, surprise, surprise. But the thing that really tipped the scale was Senator Mary Torres, who waited until the end of the hearing and then spoke from her chair as a member of the hearing and attacked Tydenko, slammed him up one side and down the other. And when the committee report came out, as you were, the committee report didn't come out. Well, it was done, but it was never circulated. And in that committee report, Chairman Nelson said, and most of all, I rely on our Senator Mary Torres. So Mary Torres, all by herself, according to Talena's committee report, was able to deep six Danny Tydenko's confirmation to the airport board. And once again, one wonders if this was an axe-grinding proposition when Tydenko was on the board that fired Mary Torres. So the old saying is, payback is a, I'm not going to use the word, but you know what word fits in there, don't you, Real Joe Cruz? Was this a matter then of payback? But if you compare the two hearings, Pito Trelawney, I can guarantee you're going to be confirmed. With Danny Tydenko, this man's character is such that he shouldn't be on that board, etc. Parenthesis, he fired me, close parenthesis. So this ought to be something of a warning to anyone who might consider taking a position in our government that requires legislative confirmation. Apparently what you have to do is you have to convince the chairman that you should be confirmed immediately, regardless of what pops up that shows your lack of suitability. And then you want to kind of do a roll call and say, is there any member here that I've dealt with before who might have an axe to grind with me? Because if there is, then I'm not going to take the job, because I don't want the same thing to happen to me that happened to Dan Tydenko. The legislature has not been covering itself with glory in this whole confirmation process. It's about time for the 7th inning stretch. Real Joe Cruz. I'm going to head there right now.
Get a half gallon of Minute Maid orange juice for only $1.99 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a half gallon of Dairy Gold milk for only $1.99 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a $7 meal for only $1.99 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy.
On-island providers, including the convenient one-stop FHP Health Center and urgent care, access to an extensive off-island network of providers, and the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs. You can count on Take Care to deliver comprehensive, accredited insurance coverage and quality health care when and where you need it. Take Care. Our island, your health plan. Learn more at takecareasia.com.
So here we are, heading down the home stretch on another exciting edition of Tall Tales. Means I've got about 7.5 minutes here to wrap up the program today. The next item on my card here is the AG versus Joey Duenas. And this comes from an article in today's Post. And it goes through and repeats all the facts that you know, that the Attorney General told Joey Duenas, what you did was illegal. You got the people that got the illegal raises have to return the money. And then we have Joey Duenas' mea culpa. And he said, Duenas said he will contact the Attorney General after the consultation process, again, after the consultation process with GPA and GWA attorneys. The attorneys received raises for the same board decision. This was my fault as the chairman because I should have done a better job chairing the meeting, Duenas said. The open government law allows CCU to hold closed-door meetings to discuss employment, but his mistake was not stopping the executive session to go back into public discussion when salaries were being discussed, Duenas added. Well, the way I read the statute, that word employment means when you're going to hire someone, you could talk about it in executive session, not just employment generally. So be careful, Joey. You might make another mistake. But then the article goes on to say, but personnel evaluations discussed during the executive session remain private, Duenas said. The AG's office filed charges about 2 years ago against former Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority board members for allegedly holding secret meetings to discuss issues that should be publicly discussed. In the November 2018 meeting, the names of individuals receiving raises and their pay adjustments were not specified during the public portion of the meeting. Normally, the employees and their adjustments are disclosed when approving pay raises in public. This is how prior pay raises were handled, Duenas said. The CCU will no longer discuss pay adjustments during closed-door executive session, but will conduct personnel evaluations in private. I got to think about that. Duenas does not know how long it will take before GPA and GWA attorneys determine the process for complying with the Attorney General's letter. Now, yesterday, my free advice to Joey was, Joey, don't try to finesse this. You know, you made a mistake, you broke the law, you got to collect the money back from the employees or even more serious consequences arise. Don't finesse it. Just recover it all from their next paycheck and be done with it and make an announcement that you've done it. And you'll restore a little bit of the lost credibility, but that's not what's happening here. Duenas does not know how long it will take before GPA and GWA lawyers determine the process for complying with the Attorney General's letter. Well, apparently, according to a telephone call from Tom Poole, it didn't take Miguel very long to determine the process. He went to the CCU meeting last night and gave him a check for the amount of the illegal raise. So it's good to know that there's one person there that understands, you know, that how to go about correcting a mistake. You don't say, well, you know, I'm going to have to check with my lawyer. I know the Attorney General said that they've got to pay the money back. I don't know how long it will take for the lawyers to figure out how they're going to go about doing that. So maybe we should give Miguel Berdallo an honorary JD and admit him to be a counsel at the CCU and let him advise as to how long it should take. It should take until the next pay period, and that's it. I didn't get to Noquette versus Torres. I'll try to pick that up tomorrow. No, I won't. No Tall Tales tomorrow or Sunday. Well, the real Joe Cruz and I will be back on Monday, so we'll see you then.